Suffering. It's a word that stirs something deep inside all of us. Whether it's the heartbreak of loss, the sting of betrayal, or the quiet ache of loneliness, we've all felt it in some form. In Buddhism, this universal truth is called dukkha, the inherent dissatisfaction woven into the fabric of life. As the Buddha taught in the First Noble Truth, suffering is unavoidable, but it is also the foundation for profound growth and transformation. Some wounds are easy to see, etched into the skin like battle scars that tell stories of survival, but others are invisible, buried deep in the heart and mind, shaping the way we think, feel, and live. These hidden marks of suffering often go unnoticed, yet they profoundly influence how we navigate relationships, make decisions, and view ourselves. They leave us with habits, behaviors, and traits that become our shield, our armor against the world. Have you ever wondered why you seem to feel everything so deeply? Why the weight of others' pain sometimes feels heavier than your own? Or why you insist on doing everything yourself, even when help is offered? Perhaps you've noticed an insatiable drive to make everything perfect, as though perfection might bring you peace. Or maybe you guard your emotions so fiercely that even those closest to you can't break through. These traits, though they seem like quirks or personality traits, are often born from suffering, a kind of survival instinct carved out of hardship. But here's the thing: this armor, while protective, can also become a burden. Over time, the very traits that helped us endure can trap us in cycles of pain and isolation. We carry the weight of our scars like a heavy backpack, trudging forward without realizing we can set it down. This isn't about labeling ourselves as broken or weak. Quite the opposite. It's about understanding the gifts and challenges that come with enduring profound suffering. These traits are evidence of resilience and adaptability, proof of the human spirit's ability to persevere. And yet, as the Buddha taught, holding on too tightly to anything, be it pain, fear, or even strength, can lead to more suffering. So, what if we could look at these traits through a new lens? What if we could learn to honor them for what they've taught us while letting go of the weight they carry? In this journey, we'll explore 5 traits commonly found in those who've suffered deeply, but instead of viewing them as flaws, we'll reframe them through the teachings of Buddhist philosophy. Together, we'll uncover how these traits can transform from burdens into pathways toward healing, compassion, and liberation. This is not just an exploration of suffering, it's a story of hope, resilience, and the possibility of renewal. As we move forward, you might find pieces of your own story in these traits. And perhaps, by the end of this journey, you'll see that even in the depths of pain, there is the potential for profound beauty and freedom. Let's begin. Trait 1. Heightened sensitivity, the gift of compassion. Suffering has an uncanny way of reshaping us, doesn't it? For those who've walked through profound pain, it often brings with it an acute awareness of the emotions around us. It's as if our own struggles tune us into a frequency others might miss, a flicker of sadness behind someone's smile, the unspoken tension in a friend's voice, or the silent plea for comfort hidden in the smallest of gestures. This heightened sensitivity, born from suffering, can be both an extraordinary gift and an unrelenting burden. At first, it might feel overwhelming. Like an emotional sponge, you find yourself soaking in the pain of those around you. It's exhausting, isn't it? You might feel like you're carrying more than just your own struggles, bearing the invisible weight of others' distress without knowing how to set it down. And yet, this very sensitivity holds the seeds of something profoundly beautiful, karuna, or compassion, one of the highest virtues in Buddhist philosophy. Compassion isn't simply feeling for others, it's feeling with them. It's the ability to recognize suffering without being consumed by it, to meet it with a heart full of love and wisdom. The Buddha understood this delicate balance. He didn't teach us to take on the suffering of the world until we're depleted. Instead, he showed us how to transform this sensitivity into a force for connection and healing. The practice of metta bhavana, or loving kindness meditation, offers a path forward. Imagine sitting quietly, closing your eyes, and beginning with yourself. You offer words of kindness and goodwill. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. From there, You expand this circle of love outward to a loved one, a friend, a stranger, and eventually to all beings everywhere. With each breath, you're not just extending compassion, you're also strengthening your own capacity to hold it. What's remarkable about this practice is how it reorients your sensitivity. Instead of feeling weighed down by the emotions of others, you learn to channel that awareness into a source of strength. Your heightened sensitivity becomes a bridge, connecting you to the shared human experience of joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle. It reminds you that no one is truly alone in their pain. There is something profoundly comforting in that, isn't there? Knowing that your struggles have given you the ability to recognize and soothe the struggles of others. The Dalai Lama once said, "Compassion is the radicalism of our time." And isn't it radical? To live in a world that often feels harsh and disconnected, yet choose to remain open-hearted and present. To feel deeply, not as a burden, but as a way of connecting to something larger than yourself. Compassion doesn't ask you to solve everyone's problems or to erase their pain. It asks you to bear witness with love, to sit in the presence of suffering and say, "I see you. I feel you. You are not alone." But here's the thing. Compassion must also extend inward. Sometimes, those of us with heightened sensitivity are quick to offer kindness to others but slow to turn that same kindness toward ourselves. We push ourselves to the brink, believing we must always be the one to help, to care, to shoulder the weight. Yet, the Buddha reminds us that compassion begins at home, within our own hearts. When you practice self-compassion, you honor the humanity in yourself. You acknowledge that your sensitivity, while powerful, also requires balance. It's okay to step back, to rest, to say, "I need a moment." Just as you wouldn't expect a candle to light a room forever without being replenished, you cannot expect yourself to give endlessly without taking time to nurture your own well-being. Mindfulness, or sati, is another key to managing this gift of sensitivity. By staying present in the moment, you learn to observe emotions, yours and others, without becoming entangled in them. It's like watching clouds drift across the sky. You see them, you acknowledge their presence, but you don't chase after them. This practice allows you to remain grounded, to approach emotions with clarity and calm rather than overwhelm. Over time, you might find that your sensitivity transforms. It's no longer something you carry like a weight, but something you wield with purpose and grace. You begin to see it as a tool, a way to create connection and foster healing in a world that so often feels fragmented. And in those moments when the burden feels too heavy, you can remind yourself, even bridges need support. There's a quiet power in this kind of sensitivity. It teaches you to listen, not just to words but to what lies beneath them. It invites you to act, not out of obligation but out of genuine care. And most importantly, it reminds you that you, too, are deserving of the same love and compassion you so freely offer to others. Imagine what the world would look like if we all embraced this kind of awareness. If instead of turning away from pain, we leaned into it with open hearts. If we allowed our own suffering to teach us how to better understand and support one another. Your heightened sensitivity is not a flaw or a weakness. It's a reflection of your humanity, a testament to your resilience, and a pathway to profound connection. In embracing this gift, you become part of something greater. You join the ranks of those who, despite their own scars, choose to heal rather than harm, to connect rather than retreat. And in doing so, you honor not only your own journey but the interconnectedness of all beings. Trait 2. Hyperindependence, the illusion of self-sufficiency. When life has shown you its harsher edges, when people you trusted have let you down or disappeared just when you needed them most, it's natural to turn inward. Hyperindependence often feels like the logical response. It's the armor you put on to protect yourself, the mantra you repeat, "I don't need anyone. I can do this myself." And for a time, it works. It gives you a sense of control, a way to navigate a world that has proven unpredictable and, at times, unkind. But over time, this fierce self-reliance, born from necessity, can become a cage. What once felt like strength starts to feel like isolation. In the teachings of Buddhism, there's a concept called pratityasamutpada, or interdependence. It's the idea that nothing exists in isolation, that everything and everyone is interconnected. Think of a tree. It doesn't grow on its own. It needs sunlight, water, and nutrients from the soil. Even the air it breathes and the carbon dioxide it releases are part of a greater cycle, a delicate balance that sustains all life. The same is true of us. No matter how much we convince ourselves that we're self-sufficient, the truth is that we are deeply connected to the people, the communities, and the world around us. Hyperindependence, as empowering as it may feel, can often blind us to this truth. When you insist on doing everything yourself, you miss out on the natural flow of connection and support that exists in healthy relationships. You build walls, not just to keep pain out, but unintentionally, to keep love and understanding out as well. And while those walls might keep you safe from betrayal, they also keep you isolated, separated from the profound beauty of shared humanity. In Buddhism, the Sangha, the spiritual community, is one of the three jewels. Alongside the Buddha and the Dharma, it's considered essential for growth and enlightenment. Why? Because even in the pursuit of spiritual liberation, we're reminded that we can't do it alone. The Sangha represents the strength we find in others, the wisdom that comes from shared experiences, and the comfort of knowing we're not walking this path by ourselves. The Sangha is a reflection of interdependence, a reminder that seeking help, support, or companionship is not a weakness but a vital part of being human. Hyperindependence often stems from a place of pain, a time when asking for help led to disappointment, or relying on someone resulted in heartbreak. It's understandable, but holding on to that pain, allowing it to shape how you engage with the world, can rob you of the very connections that bring healing and joy. Buddhism teaches us that clinging, whether to people, ideas, or even independence, is a source of dukkha, or suffering. The path to liberation isn't about rejecting connection, but about embracing it with wisdom and balance. To begin softening the grip of hyperindependence, start small. Consider the times when someone offered you help, even in the simplest of ways. A stranger holding the door open, a friend checking in, a colleague offering advice. Did it diminish your strength to accept that kindness? Or did it perhaps remind you, even briefly, that you're not alone? Accepting help doesn't mean relinquishing control. It means recognizing that we're stronger together than we are apart. The courage to say, "I need help," or "I can't do this alone," is profound. It's an act of vulnerability, but it's also an act of trust, not just in others, but in the interconnectedness of life itself. It's acknowledging that, just as you've been there for others, it's okay to let others be there for you. The Buddha taught that life is a web of cause and effect, of giving and receiving. To deny one half of that equation is to deny the fullness of what it means to be human. What would it feel like to take off the armor, even for a moment? To let someone in, not as a risk but as a step toward freedom? Perhaps it's scary, and that's okay. Growth often is, but it's also liberating. When you open yourself to connection, you begin to see that the world is not as solitary as it seemed. You start to notice the quiet ways in which people show up for you, even when you didn't ask them to. And in those moments, you realize that hyperindependence, for all its strength, was never the only way. Interdependence doesn't mean losing yourself in others or becoming overly reliant. It means finding balance, knowing when to stand on your own and when to lean on the support of those around you. It's about recognizing that strength isn't just about holding everything together on your own, but also about knowing when to let go, to share the load, to allow others to walk beside you. Imagine the freedom of knowing you don't have to carry everything alone. The weight of hyperindependence can be crushing, but when you allow others to share in your journey, even in small ways, you create space for something new, connection, understanding, and perhaps even joy. You begin to see that strength isn't measured by how much you can do by yourself, but by how open you are to the flow of give and take that life naturally offers. In letting go of hyperindependence, you don't lose your resilience. Instead, you gain a new kind of strength, one rooted in connection, trust, and the profound truth of interdependence. It's a shift from surviving to truly living, from building walls to building bridges. And in that shift, You might just find the freedom and peace you've been searching for all along. Trait 3. Perfectionism, the trap of attachment. Perfectionism can feel like a badge of honor, a standard of excellence that sets you apart. You tell yourself it's about being your best, about reaching heights that others can only dream of. But underneath that drive lies a quiet, persistent fear, a fear of not being good enough, of being judged, of falling short. It whispers, if you could just do more, be more, you'd finally feel worthy. And so, you chase perfection, believing it will shield you from criticism or rejection, as though flawlessness could make you untouchable. In Buddhist philosophy, this unrelenting pursuit is understood as tanha, or craving. It's not just the desire to succeed. It's the attachment to an ideal self, a version of you that is beyond reproach, beyond failure. But attachment, as the Buddha taught, is the root of suffering. When you cling to the illusion of perfection, you set yourself up for a cycle of frustration and exhaustion. Life is inherently anicca, impermanent and ever-changing. Perfection, by its very nature, is unattainable. Trying to grasp it is like trying to hold on to the wind. The harder you cling, the more it eludes you. This endless chase often robs you of the joy that comes from simply being in the moment. You rewrite emails 3 times before hitting send, fearing they aren't polished enough. You revisit decisions you've already made, second-guessing yourself in the name of getting it just right. And even when you achieve something extraordinary, the satisfaction is fleeting. Instead of celebrating, you're already thinking about how it could have been better. The goalpost keeps moving, and you keep running, never pausing to ask yourself why. Buddhism offers a gentler, more liberating approach, samavayama, or right effort. This principle from the Noble Eightfold Path encourages you to do your best, not to achieve perfection, but to act with integrity and intention. Right effort is about focusing on the process rather than the result. It's about giving your energy to what matters, not to what looks perfect in the eyes of others. Imagine what it would feel like to let go of the need for flawlessness, to create, not because you need it to be perfect, but because you find joy in the act of creating. To speak your truth, not because it will impress someone, but because it is authentic. When you shift your focus in this way, you begin to reclaim parts of yourself that perfectionism has silenced: your creativity, your spontaneity, your ability to take risks without fear of failure. Perfectionism often roots itself in early experiences. Maybe you were praised for your achievements, but not for your efforts. Maybe you were taught, directly or indirectly, that your worth depended on your performance. Over time, this conditioned you to believe that being perfect was the only way to earn love or approval. But as the Buddha reminds us, this belief is a form of moha, or delusion. Your worth isn't tied to what you achieve. It's inherent, unchanging, and independent of external validation. Letting go of perfectionism doesn't mean abandoning ambition or settling for mediocrity. It means redefining success in a way that aligns with your values rather than society's expectations. Success becomes less about being flawless and more about being fulfilled. It's about showing up fully, even when you feel unsure or vulnerable, and trusting that who you are is enough. The practice of mindfulness can help you navigate this shift. When you catch yourself striving for perfection, pause. Notice the thoughts and feelings that arise. Are you motivated by a genuine desire to grow, or are you driven by fear? Mindfulness allows you to step back, to see your patterns without judgment, and to choose a different path. Over time, this awareness can help you break free from the grip of perfectionism and move toward a life that feels more aligned with your true self. One of the most powerful lessons from Buddhist teachings is that imperfection is not something to be feared or fixed, it's something to be embraced. Life's imperfections are what make it beautiful, dynamic, and alive. The cracks in a vase let the light shine through. The flaws in a person make them relatable, human, and real. When you stop chasing perfection, you open yourself up to the beauty of what is, rather than what you think it should be. Ask yourself, are you striving for perfection to meet the expectations of others, or to express your authentic self? If it's the former, what would it feel like to let that go? What might you discover about yourself if you stopped trying to prove your worth and started trusting in it instead? In relinquishing the need for flawlessness, you don't lose your drive or ambition. You gain something far more valuable: freedom. Freedom to take risks, to fail, to learn, and to grow. Freedom to live a life that feels expansive rather than constrained. The journey away from perfectionism is not easy. It requires unlearning patterns that have been ingrained for years, if not decades. But with each step, you create space for something new, joy in the process, peace in the imperfections, and a deeper connection to your authentic self. In that space, you might just find that what you were seeking all along was never perfection, but presence, acceptance, and love. Trait 4. Emotional guarding, the walls of the heart. There's something achingly human about the walls we build around our hearts. They often begin as a necessity, a response to pain too sharp to bear unprotected. When someone betrays us, dismisses our feelings, or uses our vulnerability against us, it feels safer to retreat behind a barrier. Don't let them see you cry, you tell yourself, as if holding back the tears might shield you from further harm. Over time, this mantra hardens into a rule, and the walls grow higher, thicker, until you no longer remember what it's like to live without them. At first, these walls seem to work. They keep out the immediate sting of judgment or rejection. But as the Buddha taught, what we cling to inevitably becomes a source of suffering. Emotional guarding is no exception. While it shields you from some pain, it also keeps you from experiencing the depth of love, connection, and understanding that make life meaningful. The very fortress that protects you becomes a prison, isolating you from the richness of human connection. Buddhism reminds us that emotions, like all things, are impermanent. This is the essence of anicca, the truth of impermanence. Emotions arise, linger for a time, and then pass, like clouds drifting across the sky. But when we guard our hearts too closely, we resist this natural flow. We try to suppress or control what we feel, fearing that allowing emotions to surface might make us appear weak or unworthy. In doing so, we trap ourselves in a cycle of dukkha, the suffering caused by resisting reality. Imagine standing on the shore of an ocean, watching the waves come and go. You can't stop the waves or control their size, but you can choose how you respond. You might tense up, bracing yourself against each wave, or you might let go, allowing the water to flow around you. Emotions are much the same. When you allow them to rise and fall without clinging or resistance, they lose their power to overwhelm you. This is the essence of vipassana, or insight meditation, a practice that helps you observe your emotions without judgment, creating space for clarity and acceptance. It takes courage to soften the walls around your heart, to allow yourself to feel deeply after years of self-protection. Vulnerability can feel terrifying, like stepping out into the open after being hidden for so long. But it's also profoundly liberating. To be vulnerable is to say, "This is who I am, flaws and all." It's an act of self-acceptance, a recognition that your worth isn't tied to how well you hide your pain, but to the simple fact of your humanity. When you let down your guard, something remarkable happens. You begin to experience relationships in their fullness, raw, imperfect, and deeply real. You allow others to see you, not the polished version you think they want to see, but the true, unfiltered you. And in that authenticity, you create the possibility for genuine connection. Others, seeing your courage, may feel safe enough to let down their own walls, creating a space of mutual trust and understanding. This doesn't mean throwing your heart open to everyone without discernment. Vulnerability requires wisdom and boundaries. But it does mean recognizing that the risk of pain is inseparable from the possibility of joy. You cannot numb yourself to one without numbing yourself to the other. As the Buddha taught, life is a balance of opposites, pain and pleasure, loss and love. To fully live, we must embrace both. Self-compassion is essential in this process. It's easy to judge yourself for building walls or for struggling to tear them down. But those walls were built for a reason. They protected you when you needed protection. Now, as you learn to dismantle them, do so with kindness. Celebrate each small step toward openness, each moment when you choose to let yourself be seen, even if it feels uncomfortable. Compassion for yourself creates the foundation for compassion toward others. a cycle of healing that ripples outward. As you practice softening your heart, mindfulness becomes your anchor. When emotions arise, instead of pushing them away or locking them behind your walls, take a moment to breathe. Notice what you feel without attaching a story to it. Is it sadness? Fear? Anger? Name it gently, and remind yourself that it's temporary. Just as the clouds eventually give way to clear skies, your emotions, too, will pass. Over time, you might find that vulnerability feels less like weakness and more like strength. It takes strength to face your emotions honestly, to let others see you in your rawest moments. It takes strength to risk being hurt for the chance to truly connect. And in that strength, you discover a kind of peace, a peace that comes not from hiding but from living authentically. Imagine what it would feel like to let go of the walls you've built, to approach each day with an open heart, knowing that while pain is inevitable, so too is joy. To trust that you can face whatever comes your way, not by shutting out the world, but by embracing it fully. In doing so, you honor not only your own humanity, but the interconnectedness of all beings. The walls of your heart may have served you once, but now, it's time to let them fall. In their place, you'll find a life richer, fuller, and more deeply connected than you ever thought possible. Trait 5. The desire for control, the art of letting go. The desire for control often feels like a lifeline in a world that seems unpredictable and chaotic. It whispers promises of safety and stability, urging you to plan every detail, anticipate every outcome, and ensure that nothing slips through your grasp. At its core, this need for control is born from a deep fear of uncertainty, a fear that, if left unchecked, can become all-consuming. It's natural to want to feel secure, to believe that if you can just hold everything together tightly enough, life won't unravel. But as Buddhism teaches, control is an illusion. Life, by its very nature, is impermanent, ever-shifting, and beyond our full command. The law of anicca, or impermanence, is one of the fundamental truths of existence. It reminds us that everything is in a constant state of flux. Relationships change, plans fall apart. Even the most carefully constructed routines eventually give way to the unexpected. When you cling to the illusion of control, you resist this natural flow. And resistance, as the Buddha taught, is a source of dukkha, the suffering that comes from struggling against reality. Think about the times you've tried to control every detail of a situation. Perhaps you meticulously planned an event, only to have unforeseen circumstances disrupt it. Or maybe you worked tirelessly to meet an ideal, only to feel that something was still missing. The exhaustion of trying to manage everything can leave you feeling drained, frustrated, and even further from the peace you were seeking. Control may offer the illusion of stability, but it often robs you of the ability to adapt, to respond gracefully to the twists and turns of life. The Buddha's teaching on upekkha, or equanimity, offers an antidote to this exhausting pursuit. Equanimity doesn't mean indifference or passivity. It's not about giving up on your goals or abandoning your responsibilities. Instead, it's about cultivating a sense of balance and acceptance, a calm acknowledgement that life will unfold as it should, even when it doesn't follow your plans. Letting go of control doesn't mean surrendering to chaos. It means trusting in the impermanence of all things and finding peace in the present moment. Imagine standing by a river, watching the water flow effortlessly around rocks and bends. The river doesn't try to control its path. It simply moves with the natural rhythm of the earth. This is the essence of upekkha, a willingness to move with life's current rather than fighting against it. When you let go of the need to control every aspect of your journey, you open yourself to the possibility of discovering paths you hadn't considered, opportunities you couldn't have planned for, and moments of beauty that arise spontaneously. Letting go is not an easy practice. It requires unlearning patterns of thought that have been ingrained over years, perhaps even decades. But it starts with small steps. Begin by noticing the impermanence in everyday moments, a flower wilting, the shifting hues of a sunset, the laughter of a child that fades as quickly as it came. These fleeting moments, while seemingly insignificant, hold a profound truth. Nothing lasts forever. And in that transience lies the beauty of life. By recognizing and embracing impermanence, you can begin to release your grip on the need for control. One way to cultivate this practice is through mindfulness. When you find yourself feeling anxious or overwhelmed by the need to control a situation, pause, take a deep breath, and bring your attention to the present moment. Ask yourself, what am I trying to hold on to? What would happen if I let go? Often, the fear of letting go is far greater than the reality of it. By staying present and observing your thoughts without judgment, you create space for acceptance and clarity. It's also helpful to remind yourself of times when letting go led to unexpected blessings. Perhaps a plan that fell through allowed you to discover something new, or a decision to relinquish control over a relationship created space for deeper understanding and growth. These experiences serve as gentle reminders that life often unfolds in ways that are beyond our ability to predict, but not beyond our ability to appreciate. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring or trying. It means you release the attachment to specific outcomes and trust that you can handle whatever comes your way. It's about finding the balance between effort and surrender, what Buddhism calls samavayama, or right effort. This balance allows you to act with intention and integrity without being consumed by the fear of failure or uncertainty. There is profound freedom in this practice. When you let go, you make room for spontaneity, joy, and the unexpected gifts of the present moment. You allow life to surprise you, to unfold in ways that might exceed your carefully crafted expectations. And perhaps most importantly, you give yourself permission to rest, to step back from the exhausting task of trying to control what is ultimately uncontrollable. Imagine what it would feel like to live with that kind of freedom, to wake up each day with a sense of curiosity rather than anxiety, to approach challenges with an open heart rather than a clenched fist. Letting go doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding a deeper connection to the flow of life. It means trusting that even in the uncertainty, there is a wisdom at work, a rhythm that you can align with rather than fight against. As you practice letting go, you may find that the world feels less heavy, less daunting. You begin to see that control was never the source of your strength. Your strength lies in your ability to adapt, to grow, to embrace the impermanence of all things. And in that embrace, you discover a peace that no amount of control could ever bring. If these traits resonate with you, take a moment to pause and reflect. They are not marks of failure or weakness, but powerful evidence of your resilience. Each trait, whether it's your heightened sensitivity, hyperindependence, perfectionism, emotional guarding, or need for control, tells a story of survival. They are the strategies you've developed to navigate life's challenges, the ways you've protected yourself in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming. Yet, as the Buddha reminds us, what once served as a shield can become a burden when we cling to it too tightly. The journey forward is not about erasing these parts of yourself, but transforming them. Imagine turning that sensitivity into a wellspring of compassion, hyperindependence into balanced interdependence, and the need for control into a practice of trust and surrender. These shifts don't happen overnight, but with mindfulness, patience, and kindness toward yourself, they are possible. As you begin to loosen your grip on old patterns, you create space for something new, a life that feels lighter, freer, and more aligned with who you truly are. Healing is a process, not a destination. There will be days when it feels like you're making great strides and others when it feels like you're standing still. But each moment of awareness, each small act of letting go, is a step forward. It's a reminder that suffering, as difficult as it can be, is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a profound transformation, a chance to discover the beauty and strength within you. As you continue on this path, remember that you are not alone. There is a vast community of people who are also learning to navigate their scars, their strengths, and their growth. Together, we can create a space where vulnerability is celebrated, where progress, no matter how small, is honored, and where connection reminds us of our shared humanity. If something in this video spoke to you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated most with you? Which of these traits do you see in yourself? And how are you working to transform them? Share your journey in the comments below. Your story might be the spark of encouragement someone else needs to take their first step. Thank you for spending this time with us, and for allowing these ideas to become part of your day. If you found this video meaningful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more reflections like this, and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss a new video. Remember, every step you take, no matter how small, is a step toward greater peace, connection, and freedom. You are already stronger and braver than you realize. Thank you for being here, and may your journey be one of light, growth, and boundless compassion.